Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. Welcome all listeners to what's coming to be one of the biggest events, at least that we know of in this century, and that is December 21st, what is known as the end of the Mayan calendar. But with all the confusion and chaos and possibility that people seem to be projecting around this event about what may happen, at Beyond 50 we usually try to take it one step further than everyone else to find out exactly what this is all about and how we can get a better understanding of not only our place in this world, but how we can actually better ourselves and everything around us. After all, sometimes people think that after we pass, if we haven't lived a good life, a life of purity and purpose, we find ourselves going to hell or purgatory. However, it's become more and more obvious that hell can actually be created here on earth, so how do we get around that? How do we unchain the binds that hold us back from a life not only of purpose, but of happiness? Joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program today is an international best-selling author. And when I mean best-selling, his books have sold almost 8 million copies in the United States alone. He spent more than 7 years on the New York Times bestseller list. Today we're going to be talking about his book, which is very well known, simply titled The Four Agreements. It's a practical guide to personal freedom. And I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our very special guest, Mr. Don Miguel Ruiz. Miguel, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be in your show. I'm very excited for everything that is coming.
Now, I know a good couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to have your son, Don Miguel Jr., was on our program, and we were talking about your teachings then, and I just remember how moved I was about what you have here in the Four Agreements. And you realize, this is so simple, but in actually putting them in practice, that's the real work.
Well, it's definitely true. And the reason is because we practice exactly the opposite. So we can say that these Four Agreements is just the introduction of a new way of life. Not exactly new, but a different way of life. And the way of life of the artist. Okay, you see, the word Toltec means artist. So when I talk about Toltecs, I'm really not referring to the people who live in Mexico 2,000 or more years ago. I'm talking about the people who live right now in any place in the planet Earth. It doesn't matter what is the language they speak or the religion they follow. Everything is very, very simple. And these Four Agreements is just the introduction of a way of life of the artist.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that there is I guess, call it a celebration, spiritual experience that you're going to be having within the pyramids December 17th through the 21st, where you can bring the message of the Mayan elders, to people. Tell us a little bit about that, and then, down the road we'll talk more about the Four Agreements, but let's just talk about the Mayan calendar, for instance, okay? Now, some good years ago, when I read about this in a book called Mayan Prophecies, I really came to know how basically the Mayans put things together. You could see they drew from nature. They were great observers, scientists, astronomers, you name it. And from what I remember, and again, it's been quite a while, the Mayan calendar was more of a representation of observable cycles, and that's kind of how they lived. It wasn't so much of a dated thing, so to speak. But if you could, give our listeners some clarity what the Mayan calendar is and what is this, that seems to be kind of a crazy idea of the end of the world because of the 21st and the end of the calendar, because it didn't make any sense to me, but it sure seems fun.
Well, we humans, we have the idea to measure time, and we create calendars just to measure time. And it's not only the Mayans, but the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Arabics, and Hindus. All around, we always create calendars because we just need it in order to measure the time. There's nothing to do with prophecies or anything like that. But there's many people who prophesize big catastrophes, etc. Like that reminds me of the famous Y2K, that everybody was waiting that the world will collapse because the computers will fail. They arrived and nothing happened.
Right.
will be exactly the same thing. The day will arrive and nothing will happen because it's just a day like any other day.
Right.
But what is interesting is that it's the end of a long cycle of the way we measure time. And of course, there's many people who prophesize all those disasters, etc., etc. Well, nothing will happen. We don't need to worry about that. And I say nothing will happen unless we want something to happen. But this is between we, the humans, to make a new agreement that we can make a difference, I guess. And what I'm proposing, wherever I go, because it's 18 months that I've been all around the world, is to propose that should mean the end of the superstition, the end of fanaticism, and the return to the truth.
Well, that certainly makes a heck of a lot more sense.
Oh, definitely, because it's nothing to fear, but it's a lot to celebrate. You know, like every year on December 31st, we celebrate the end of a year. And it's a day that we make a little review of everything that we did during the whole year and what we wish to do in the next year. Then it's something very similar, but this time it's not only 1 year, it's a whole generation. It's a few thousands of years that we can review and see what we did right, what we did wrong, and learn from our mistakes and project the way we want to live in the next calendar, if we call it in that way. Then it's a big opportunity for all of us to have a review of the way we live our life. And if we don't like the way we live our life, well, we can change it. Nobody can do it but us. Mm-hmm. You know, like I was telling you a little before, Toltec means artist, and we all are artists. And we all create a masterpiece of art if we don't have that awareness. And that masterpiece of life, of art, is the story of ourselves, the story of our life. Because we are the ones who create that story, and that story is only true for us, but for nobody else. And what is very interesting that in that story that we create a character that is extremely important, the main character of our story, which is ourselves, what we believe about ourselves. Mm-hmm. See that the way we live our life right now is the result of all the decisions that we make during our entire life. Then we can see if we like it or we don't like our life. If we don't like our life, well, good news. We create it and we can change it. But if we don't want to change it because we like it, then there's nothing to do. You just keep enjoying life.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's really powerful, Miguel, when people read the Four Agreements, and I'm sure this kind of parlays in all of your other books as well. When you think of the word agreement, and you begin to, of course, read your book, The Four Agreements, a person can't help but to begin to experience the personal responsibility they have for why their life is the way it is. You know, if it's not good, you know, well, that's your fault because you agreed to that. You know, well, my life is great. Well, that's great because you agreed to that. And you talk at length in the beginning of your book about this great domestication. Expound on that for our audience, because what it really made me aware of is how we had made a lot of these agreements, as you call them, and you realize there's really no way out of this when you get it to realize you can't play a victim, because now you've agreed to be a victim, you know. So there's really no way out of the personal responsibility that you feel as you read this.
Well, we have to understand that before we was born, society already exists. And society have all those rules that impose to everyone to follow. The moral rules, the legal rules, etc. is a hallmark how we should be in order to fit to society. Then when we were born, we had no knowledge. Then our parents hook our attention, and through our parents or teachers, etc., society download into our brain everything that we know. Then we learn from the language that we speak, the religion that we believe, philosophy, the way our parents live, the way we interact at school, etc. And what we find out is that the way we learn is through the attention. We can say that attention is a part of the mind who help us to focus and what we want to perceive and discriminate everything that we don't want to perceive. And this is how we learn and also how we teach. In order to teach, we need to hold somebody's attention that we can download information into that person. And if we want to learn, we need to focus our attention in the teacher or the person who is teaching us something. And that way we can interact. And we can say that the attention is like a bridge that goes from one mind to another mind, or from one mind to many other minds, or from many minds to one mind. Mm-hmm. Then that's why attention is extremely important. Then once that we finally use attention, then the domestication begins, which means the education begins. Then and we domesticate our children the same way that we domesticate our pets, punishment and reward. Then if we do something that they don't like it, we will be punished. And if we do something that they like it, we will have the reward. And in time, we will be afraid to be punished, but also afraid of not to get the reward. Then we can see that that way, little by little, society starts downloading into our brain everything that we know. And all that knowledge becomes like the book of the law, because this is what we believe is, our faith is invested in everything that we believe. Mm-hmm. And that way, we create a whole story, and we create the main character, which is what we believe we are. And that main character of that story is subject to the book of law, which is our knowledge. Then it looks like we have a big judge that is judging everything that we do, what we don't do, what we think, what we don't think. And we are victimized by that judge, because that judge is very strict judge. Then we can see that after many years of being domesticated by somebody else, we start domesticating ourselves. Then we are the only animals who auto-domesticate themselves. And this is very, very interesting. Then with these 4 agreements is an introduction, like I said before, to the way of life of the artist. And in that way, we no longer focus our attention and all those lies that we learn and all those traumas, etc., but we focus our attention in what we love, in the beauty, we can say. And just by doing that, our whole world starts changing right away, because we are perceiving beauty and we don't want to perceive all those traumas that exist all around us. Not that we deny that exists. Of course, everything exists before we were born. We didn't do it, then we don't need to be punished for something that we didn't do it. Then what we can see is, in that way, we're really becoming extremely happy just because we love what we perceive, and everything becomes really about love. And this is something that is happening right now. You know, the humanity evolved with times of crisis and time of stability. Right now is a time of crisis, but this is the opportunity to make the changes that we need to do in order to change the big dream. And this is what is very interesting in what is happening right now with the end of the Mayan calendar. It's all around the world. Many things are happening. Nobody believes anymore all those lies, and everybody wants a change. Then my proposal, as I will say it again, is to end the superstition and to end the fanaticism and to return to the truth.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you can describe what this truth is.
Oh, definitely. You know, since we are humans, we are always searching for the truth. It looks like, and in science, we say that we don't believe in God, but we believe in the truth. So it's exactly the same thing. Okay, that at least there's 2 things for sure truth. One is life. And a life and we don't even need to prove that life exists. We all are alive. And the other is death, because sooner or later, all of us will die. And this is the truth, life and death. And everything is just death between life and death. That reminds me of my classes of physics when I was in high school. The teacher used to say that matter only can be moved if a force moves matter. And if matter in movement only can be stopped if a force stops matter. Well, that force that moves matter is life, and matter itself is death, because matter cannot be moved by itself without that force. Then everything is in constant movement. As if we see an atom, all the electrons is moving all the time. It's not stopping. And everything that we know is made by atoms. Then you can see that it is true. That dance between life and death creates everything. And what is beautiful, that's in the Toltec mythology. The way we call it is Nahual. Nahual means life, and Tonal means death. And they say everything is a dance between the Nahual and the Tonal, the entire creation. Then I think it's a beautiful mythology, but the mythology I think is real, is the truth. If we just let go the name and just say life and death, or matter and energy and matter, then we can agree in many ways in order to really understand the entire creation.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the four agreements, you brought up a term or a word, a Toltec word, matote, where your mind is in a fog. Describe what that is like, because it seems like a lot of us do that. We sort of go about our lives in a slumber. We're asleep. We're dreaming. And when we get our cages rattled, so to speak, it kind of makes us feel uncomfortable. But those are the true opportunities trying to point the way for what you are here to do. And, for instance, your story was pretty compelling because here your parents were trying to pass on this knowledge to you. You decided to take a different direction by becoming a surgeon, and then a car crash leads you back to where you were supposed to be. So it sounds like God hit you with a pretty hard hammer rather than tickling you with a feather.
Well, okay, let's start first with the mitote. Okay, that comes from knowledge. When society trains us to be part of society, they can know all the rules in our mind, and we accept it as truth. Then, when knowledge evolves in our mind, it becomes a moment that knowledge starts speaking in our brain with a voice that no one can hear but us, and we call it we start thinking. Then, as knowledge evolves, then the thinking becomes multiple, and even we create multiple personalities, and we can hear different voices, and all the thinking in our brain becomes so big, it looks like we are in a market where 1,000 people are talking at the same time, just listening, and this is what we call mitote. Mm-hmm. And this is a kind of mitote. There's too much noise in our brain, too much talking, and we have no peace. And this is something that we're searching for thousands of years to get that inner peace. And it's not that difficult to get that inner peace. We find the inner peace in the place in between thoughts. Inner peace exists there. The only way to get it is to go into certain kind of meditation, perhaps, search for that place, and make it as big as possible, that in certain we find out that from that inner peace is where knowledge begins, really. It's beyond knowledge, because it's the ones who create knowledge and not the opposite. But when we create knowledge, we give all personal power to knowledge, and knowledge becomes a big talent in our life.
Now, let's talk about the four agreements and what they are. Starting with the first one, which is be impeccable with your word.
Well, for me, this is the most important part because the whole story is made by words. We created language that we speak, and that way we explain everything that we perceive. We create our own world, our own reality by using the word. Well, if we are impeccable with the word, the result is the most wonderful and beautiful story. We create our own personal heaven. If we misuse the word, we create all those dramas that can become worse and worse and worse, and we can create our own personal hell also. And this will depend on how we use the word. And the second one is be impeccable with the word. Well, if you understand that the same way that we create our personal story, everybody around us, they also create their personal story. And in my story, everyone that I know is just a secondary character. But those secondary characters are based in reality, because it's true that I have parents, that I have brothers, that I have lovers, that I have children. It's absolutely true. But the ones who live in my mind, they're not real. They're just images of them, and those are my secondary characters. Well, in their story, I am just a secondary character. Then whatever they say about me, they're really saying about the secondary character who lives in that story. Then if we agree with what they say, then we will be affected, mainly emotionally, because we will believe and we will agree with whatever definition they have. But if we don't take it personally, then we are in an interaction that we have with everybody else that gives us immunity. The third one is don't make assumptions, and that has to do with knowledge, really, with the thinking specifically. Because we make the assumption that everything that we think is exactly the truth, and it's not real that way. Then, especially when all those thoughts come from lies, and especially when those lies go against ourselves. Like when we say, "Oh God, I'm not beautiful, I'm not wonderful," we reject ourselves before anybody else rejects us. We say, "We are not strong enough, intelligent enough, I'm so stupid." Well, these are lies, but we believe it, and this is the main problem. We believe all those assumptions. That if we don't make assumptions, we will have that inner peace, and that will give us immunity in the interaction that we have with ourselves. And the fourth agreement is my favorite one, because it's about action.
Right.
Do your best. You know, the first agreement, they're only in the level of the mind and the level of the imagination. But with the fourth one, we make it real. Everything that we humans create first exists in our imagination, and with the action, we make it real. That's how we create all the civilizations that exist on the planet Earth. And of course, do your best. But, you know, there's many great ideas that we can have in mind. If we don't take the action, those ideas will just dissipate and never will come real unless we action. So we have to do in Teotihuacan these 4 days. We will work in a way we can make real our dreams. We will face all the obstacles to stop us to be authentic, to be ourselves. We will fear, which is the irrational fear is so big that paralyzes people. We will face also power. There's a lot of struggling for power, and we will face also knowledge that becomes really the big tyrant of our life, because it's the one who really created that story by using character. And finally, we have the clarity, and we understand really what death is. Not
Yeah, it's fascinating, Miguel, as you describe being impeccable with your word. To first of all, the word impeccable is to be without sin, as you broke down, you know, what that word actually is. And sin is basically where you're missing the mark. You know, I mean, as I understand it, was an old Hebrew term, which was an archery term, which you're missing the target. That's what sin actually is. But how it morphed into in the Judeo-Christian system of religious belief to be, this bad thing, which it is bad because you're missing the mark, but, it's all about how the words create the power of the reality. And I'm reminded of an author who wrote a book back in the 1920s called Your Word is Your Wand, and she was part of what was known as the New Thought movement, I guess is what it was. And it's so true that as I was reading that, I was thinking about her work, and I was thinking, if people could just get the power of that ideal, to be impeccable with your word, start watching what you're saying, because the word has the power to co-create reality. The question is, what kind of reality are your words creating? And then it moves in, and you say the next three agreements are really sort of a branch off of this very first one. And you begin to see how, this is really easy to understand, but it really takes some real work, because you're really trying to change your reality from what it was to what you would like it to be. And that takes some doing, and as you said, you're going to fall down, get back up, brush yourself off, and do it again. And you do it again until it becomes a habit, but then it becomes easier. And I couldn't agree with you more, about that, but just to think of the power that our words, whether you have them in mind or you speak them, really co-create reality. So the question is, what reality are you creating?
Exactly. And then you should see traditions that doesn't matter where they're coming from, they always looking for the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
They look for the last judgment. People misunderstand what they say, because they think that the end of the world is the end of the planet Earth.
Planet Earth's been here for a few billion years. I think it's got some things figured out that we don't.
The world that they say is really the world that we create, our personal world. Then can you imagine if million people end the world in December 2001? That means that they begin a new one, fresh.
Mm-hmm.
The truth, without superstition and without fanaticism. For me, it means that it changed the eyes from the eyes of the victim into the eyes of the artist. And an artist is always looking for beauty and for enjoyment. And can you imagine if 6 billion people of the world that day,
mm-hmm.
and the new one? And the way to do it is by the last judgment. Last judgment is the last time that we judge. And the last judgment is about ourselves. The last time that we judge ourselves. You can imagine, for example, Buddha in the Bodhi tree. It showed the last judgment of Buddha when he faced Mara. And Mara had the same face of Buddha. He was really judging the main character of his story. After a point, he said, well, you're not real. And he pointed with a finger to the earth and said, I put our mother, which is real, as a witness that you are not real. In that moment, he no longer was Siddhartha, he becomes Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
In the desert, they faced the snake that they called Satan. He was really facing himself and doing his last judgment. After that, there was no. Again, when he went out the desert, now he was the Christ, the Christ. Then the last judgment, and we will try to do that in one, and of course, I don't expect that will happen, and I don't expect that humanity will change the way we wish to change. But we can give a very big step.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's the end of the Mayan calendar, and this happened every several thousands of years. But it's not important how long. It's really not important to understand how the calendar works. What is important to understand is that it was just to measure time, and we don't have to live in those problems that say that doomsday is happening, etc., etc. No, it's about to celebrate, really see how to live life after that day. After the 22nd, I'm going to Chichen Itza, and we'll gather with the elders, the Mayan elders, and elders from other places. It will be wonderful. We will give a message to the world for what we expect for the next generation of humanity, because this is a legacy that we will leave to the humans after us.
Now, the second agreement is to not take things personally. I think that's a hard one for a lot of people.
Definitely. The sense that we are only secondary characters in everybody's story. That really makes sense. In the fifth agreement that my son wrote, Don Jose, using his imagination, he talked about a multi-cinema, because there's many movies at the same time, and we find our own movie, the movie with our name, and we see that movie, and it's the story of our life. We see the main character and everyone that we know, just we live our life. Then we go to the next theater and we find, the movie of our mother. And we see the point of view of our mother. Mm-hmm. And we see ourselves as a secondary character in our mother's movie. And definitely we are not that secondary character. That shocks us to see us the way that our mother sees us, and the way we see our father and our brothers or sisters are completely different than the way we do it. And then we go to another theater, and the theater is about our beloved. And we see how our beloved see us, and how the beloved see our parents and our brothers, etc. And it's more shocking. And we can see movies from other people that when we come back to our own movie and see the way we created, we really find it completely unreal. And we can see that main character just was pretending to be what he or she is, in order to please everybody around. Then we find out that that really we don't need to justify our existence with everybody else and try to please what everybody else wants from us, because there's not to please everyone. Mm-hmm. And that start becoming more and more authentic, and we start letting go of so many things that used to hook us before, create so many problems. Then you can see that I can personally really go much deeper, much more and more deeper, when we find out that we live in our own story, and it's just a story. Like everybody lives in just a story, and it's wonderful. It's great, and we can. That's so important, because with the agreement, we can really socialize together, create a bigger dream, like a dream of a family, where you have a wife and children, and a dream of a business and the home or the place that you work, in any direction of life. And everything is really about agreement. Even every word that we speak is only true because we agree with the meaning of that word. And you see, everything is made by agreement.
And the one point that you make in there that people should come to understand this, when you talk about not taking things personally, is that when someone can come up to you and they can be critical or whatever they may be, they've already done that to themselves. They're just projecting that part of themselves onto you, who knows, for a way to get rid of the pain. So you can literally, if someone comes up and says, I think you're an idiot, they're really saying, I think I'm an idiot, but I just thought I would tell you that. and it gets to be pretty powerful that when you can really, I guess, meditate or think on that and put it into practice, that it gets a lot easier not to take things personally, especially when things such as criticism. I'm sure maybe you've even experienced that putting your work out there, that there's somebody who's going to come out there and say, oh, this is a lot of nonsense. Well, no, that's because you agree that your world is nonsense, and you're just looking for me to be able to come to understand that.
The things that I do and wherever I go is to say, well, I am completely responsible for everything that I am saying,
Mm-hmm.
but I am not responsible for what you understand.
Right.
Your responsibility, not mine.
I know, it just seems like we live in a world, especially in the United States, where everybody's trying to play it safe and watch what they're saying and watch what they're doing, to the point that the people just don't take that personal responsibility anymore, and we're blaming everybody for the way that our lives are. And, you know, as you take a look at the 4 agreements and you talk about agreements just in and of themselves, you realize you don't have to live this way. And in fact, you talk in your book about how, you know, people think it's free in America, but are we really free? Well, take a look at all the shackles we throw on ourselves, the expectations and the like, and it can drive a person nuts just thinking about it.
We want the freedom really find it inside ourselves.
Right.
Not outside, because we are the ones who don't allow ourselves to breathe. We create all those fears, struggle with, we can say that with power, and we know what we believe. Then we are the ones who stop our freedom. And if we just learn to love and respect ourselves and love and respect everybody around us, we will find that freedom inside of ourselves. And we cannot give what we don't have. Then we see everything with all that injustice, all the conflict, the violence. But we see inside it's exactly the same thing. We don't have justice inside of us. You know, we pay 1,000 times for one mistake and make other people pay 1,000 times for one mistake. And we call that justice, really?
It reminds me of what you were talking about in your book, how we tend to beat up on ourselves over and over and over for something that we've done already. What good does that really do us?
Oh, the truth. It was enough when that happened. Just one time is enough.
Right. Just let yourself be punished that one time, and then you're done with it.
Yes, and that's it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, Miguel, if you the 3rd agreement is don't make assumptions. Boy, geez, you know, I wonder how we can get around that one.
And so it's right there, and it's all the time, and we're doing it all the time. You know, like I write in the book that the example of the mother or the father who is waiting for the son or the daughter who went to a party and having a great time, and it tells the daughter or the son, you have to be here at 12. Well, it's already 1 in the morning and making all those assumptions, and they're so worried. What's happened with that, with my son or my girl? Is in jail, or an accident? Later comes very happy and having a great time in their life, and we make all those assumptions for nothing. When the truth arrives, all those lies just cannot stand. It will fall down, fall apart. Mm-hmm. And we take the time, almost in every direction, because we are thinking and thinking and thinking, and many times we cannot even sleep because we are thinking. This is amazing what we can do to ourselves.
I don't know why I was just thinking of a movie, Rodney Dangerfield, Back to School. And there's a scene where he's in the college store with his son and his son's friend, and they're bringing up used books. And he says, hey, what's with the used books? They said, well, they've already been read. And he says, yeah, so? And he says, well, that means they've already been underlined. He says, well, what if the last guy was a maniac?
That's funny.
But there it is. I'm reminded, for instance, and I was reading about this earlier this year, that there was a time when we actually elected a president because he had these Adonis looks. This was back in, I guess, the 1920s, somewhere right around there. And because of the way he looked is what got him elected. But yet he went down as being one of the worst presidents we've ever had. We made an assumption because the guy was attractive that he should be able to lead the country and be a good leader. But it's funny how when you really take a look at assumptions, just kind of go out as an exercise, perhaps today after this show, and say, how many times do I just assume things are the way they are? And it gets to be an interesting exercise in and of itself, I would think.
Yes, and like I was saying before, it's really a big challenge for everything that we learned before.
Mm-hmm.
The agreements is not really a process of learning, but unlearning the lies that we learned before.
Right.
Because we can see that people say that it's so difficult to apply it. It's easy to understand, but difficult to apply it. And the reason is because we practice exactly the opposite. We take everything personally, and it becomes automatic. We make assumptions, it becomes automatic. We may use the word because we do that all the time. Then practice makes the master. Then we master about taking everything personally. We master about doing all of assumptions. We master to use the words against ourselves. And we procrastinate. We don't take action because for whatever justification we have, that mainly because of fear to be rejected, not be adequate, etc., etc. And we judge ourselves the way we believe that people judge us. Then we reject ourselves before anybody else rejects us. Then these four agreements really take you to what you really are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very interesting that when you read the book for the second time, it feels like you are reading another book, but the book didn't change. We are the one who changed.
Right, exactly.
Really, it's the same thing. But this simple book to what you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's helping you change your world. Just by applying it is very much your personal paradise, personal habit, and you see it almost instantly. After that, the Master of Love, everybody can read that book, especially if they go in any kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people read it before they get matrimony, etc., etc., because that will really help them make the right choices.
Mm-hmm. Now, your fourth agreement is to do your best.
And it's my favorite one.
Because this is the one where you can get up and dust back off and try again, but our best usually changes.
When I was a child, something that I learned from my parents that I can make all my dreams come true.
Mm-hmm.
Thing that I need is a strong will and the courage to do it, to take the action. And I see that it really works. We have so many plans, but if we don't take action, those plans never will become real. And it's just by doing the best we can, and our best is changing anyway all the time, because it's not the same when we are sick as when we are healthy. When we just wake up and we are fresh, and when we are tired at night, we are emotionally unbalanced, or when we are emotionally right, then everything changes. Then when we do the best that we can, we don't have to judge ourselves because we didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Excuses, really.
Mm-hmm. The idea of the second chance, it's one of those things America celebrates, where we can fall and get back up again and try again until we get it right.
Again, this is what we want to do for this Mayan calendar by the end, to give ourselves a new chance, a better chance.
Right.
If we change, the benefit is, well, mainly it's for us because our lives change, but also for the people, because the ones who love us. You know, the children will learn from us not what we say, but what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the legacy that we're going to give to our children. That what we finish with ourselves, that is really the family, the little creation that we did individually with somebody else. And after that is the community, our job, our business, to take our authenticity wherever we go. You know, everything looks so corrupt all around us.
Mm-hmm.
It's corrupted by lies, really. This is the conflict that exists in the human mind for thousands of years. They believe that the conflict was between good and bad. But this is just a result of the real conflict. The conflict is really between the truth and lies. If we believe in truth, we are good. And this is what I hear from the greatest teacher, in my point of view, of course, when he said to the disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm.
And it's proposing, whatever I know right now, that the end of the Mayan calendar should represent the end of fanaticism and the return to the truth. Why? Because the truth will set us free.
Mm-hmm.
People, and freedom comes from outside. If it change itself, get our personal freedom, we and then to come, and we can await.
Yeah, it was interesting, as you were talking about the end of the Mayan calendar and being the second chance, that in the chapter where you talk about doing your best, you bring up the character of Forrest Gump, and how here was someone who constantly moved forward, doing the best that he can do in each situation he was in. And I was reminded when you said second chance of the scene in the movie of Forrest Gump where they're in that bar and they're partying for New Year's Eve, and one of the girls says, "Don't you just love New Year's? Everybody gets a second chance." But that's that way each day. Even John Wayne was known to be quoted that at midnight your day ends. Mm-hmm. And that after midnight you get a whole nother day to make a difference, to make a change, to do what you want to do. And if you could just try your best, it may not be as good as you want it to be. But hey, you get another chance to try to do better the next time. And you can see how in keeping with the 4 agreements that if you just make a commitment to try your best with each one each day, you won't be perfect, but just try, you can see how your life would radically transform and accelerate in that transformation probably faster than you think.
You know, and after practicing these 4 agreements for a certain time, and the conclusion is coming, and the conclusion is the peace, which is be skeptical, to listen. Mm-hmm. Because we know already the same way that we create our personal dream, and it's only true for us, everybody else also creates a personal dream, and it's only true for them. Then whatever they say is true only for them, not necessarily for us. And when we, which is really the key, we can make it ours, improve the story. And this is how completely something that we use in science a lot. You know, we create all these theories, we expose the theories, and they're skeptical. But and even if they agree or they take part of what we say and they use it in their own way, and this is how science keeps evolving and evolving and evolving. So now we can see how science and technology, they are very fast right now. It's incredible The only problem is that psychology is way behind.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that is happening right now. Psychology is trying to catch up with science and technology. Don't be happy.
Mm-hmm. The book is The Four Agreements. It's a practical guide to personal freedom. Our guest today, Don Miguel Ruiz. Now, Miguel, there was something I wanted to let our listeners know about this book that to me was really profound. It's certainly one that's going to stay on my shelf. And that is how you decided to put it together in the artistic way that you did. Every page, you know, is a different color with different artwork. I mean, every single page, usually, you know, the artwork is on the outside of the cover, and then the rest of it's just black and white, and that's the end of it. But this is really like a piece of art. It's really beautiful. How did you come to decide to go that direction with your book?
Well, that's to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Four Agreements, which is year 2012. The book was published in 1997. And it's a way to say thank you to everyone, to offer also the beauty evidence that they read it. It's art.
Mm-hmm. Because we all have an artist within us.
We are artists.
Yes, absolutely. Because there was an interesting sort of a quote that I heard one time on a tape series, and it was really encouraging to hear this, especially when you think about doing your best as the fourth agreement. And that is, the guy simply says, just think about it this way: in billions of years of evolution, now that's billions of years of evolution, no one can screw up quite like you can. That's a pretty encouraging thought.
It's great. Because even if we believe that it's a mistake, it still is perfect.
Right, exactly, because nobody else can do it the way you did. and God knows, I've certainly had my share where I kind of looked and go, now how did you figure out to do it that way? It's certainly been a wonderful pleasure to have you on the program, and tell us again about the celebration that you're having on the 17th through the 21st.
Well, yes, it will be for 4 days. We will different obstacles in our life. The 21st, we will do the celebration. Symbolically, we bury all humanity, and symbolically, we will give birth to the new humanity. And 22nd is the day one after the creation. Then that will be in Teotihuacan. And the ceremony will be in a little cave that is beside Teotihuacan. That cave will represent the grace for all humanity, and at the same time the woe for the new humanity. Mm-hmm. And it will be a great and beautiful celebration. Will participate in that. Second, I fly to meet with the Mayan elders and elders from other different tribes and races to send a beautiful message to the entire humanity. It will be also a great ceremony. Mm. And for in my web, the teachers' webs also, they are doing like a countdown from that day, and we are facing years, etc. Then if they can come into my web, then they will have more and more information about that. It will be a wonderful time.
And what is your website?
MiguelRuiz.com.
Okay, very good. Okay. The Four Agreements is the book, folks. Start stepping and living into each one of these, and you'll see miraculous things change as that artist in you emerges. Don Miguel Ruiz, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
It is my pleasure, and just give my love to everyone who is listening.
I will do that. Thank you again, sir. We want to thank you, the listeners out there, for tuning in. Again, step in and do the 4 agreements. You'll be very, very amazed. And one of those steps you can take to do your best is to type in beyond50radio.com. We'll have a live link for you there so you can find out more about Don Miguel Ruiz at miguelruiz.com, the 4 agreements. We thank you again for tuning in. You've been listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, and remember, live your day past halfway.